In the heart of a small village in Nigeria, two brothers, Chidi and Emeka, grew up side by side. Their bond was unbreakable, or so it seemed. Life in the village was simple yet tough. Their family wasn't wealthy, but their mother, Mama Nneka, worked tirelessly to provide for Chidi, Emeka, and their younger sister, Ada. As the eldest, Chidi always felt a sense of responsibility. He was the one who helped with the farm, ensured Emeka focused on his studies, and watched over Ada as she grew up. Despite their struggles, the family was close-knit. Chidi, however, was always ambitious. He dreamed of a life beyond the village, of opportunities far greater than what the farmland could offer. The more he thought about it, the more he became determined to live. He told his family, "I need to go to the city, find work, and create a better life for all of us. We can't stay here struggling forever." It was a difficult decision. His mother, though reluctant to let him go, knew deep down that he was right. With tears in her eyes, she blessed him on his journey, and Chidi left for Lagos with little more than a few clothes, some food, and a heart full of hope. Arriving in Lagos was overwhelming. The city was vast, noisy, and full of people so different from the quiet village Chidi had known. Jobs weren't easy to find, but Chidi had a strong will and wasn't afraid of hard work. He started selling goods on the streets, pushing a small cart from morning until night, hustling to make a living. The first few months were grueling. There were days when he barely made enough to eat, let alone send money back home. But Chidi never gave up. Hard work pays, he often told himself, remembering his mother's words. Little by little, things began to improve. His business picked up, and soon he was making enough to send a small amount of money back to the village to support his family. Chidi's dedication didn't stop there. He saved as much as he could, eventually expanding his business. What started as a simple street vending gig turned into a small shop, and that shop soon grew into a chain of stores selling imported goods. Within a few years, Chidi became a wealthy businessman in Lagos. The city now knew his name. But he never forgot his family. Every month, he sent money home for his siblings' education. Ada, the youngest, was sent to university to study medicine, while Emeka was funded to study business. Chidi also sent money to improve his mother's living conditions. He built her a new house, one of the finest in the village. Everyone praised him for his success, calling him a good son who never forgot his roots. Back in the village, life had changed for Mama Nneka and the siblings, but things weren't as peaceful as they seemed. Emeka, once proud of his older brother's success, began to feel something dark and heavy settle in his heart, jealousy. At first, Emeka admired Chidi. He bragged to friends about his brother's achievements. But as Chidi's wealth grew, so did Emeka's envy. He couldn't understand why Chidi seemed to have all the luck. "We grew up the same," Emeka thought to himself. "Why should Chidi have so much, and I have nothing?" Emeka began to resent how everyone praised Chidi. Even in their own home, all his mother talked about was how well Chidi was doing, how generous he had been, and how much he had done for the family. Emeka, though benefiting from his brother's hard work, felt overlooked and began to compare his life to Chidi's at every turn. When Chidi married Chioma, a beautiful and intelligent woman, Emeka's jealousy hit its peak. He saw Chioma as another thing Chidi had that he didn't. In his twisted mind, Emeka began to believe that he deserved everything Chidi had, his wealth, his businesses, and even his wife. One day, when Chidi visited the village with Chioma, Emeka's jealousy bubbled over. He couldn't hide it anymore. During a family gathering, Emeka made sly comments. "It must be nice to have everything handed to you on a silver platter, right, Chidi?" he sneered, his tone dripping with bitterness. Chidi, taken aback, tried to laugh it off, but the tension was clear. Chioma noticed it too. Later that night, she asked Chidi, "Why does Emeka seem so angry?" I've noticed how he looks at you and at me. Chidi, confused and hurt, tried to brush it aside. Emeka's just going through something, he said. He'll come around. But Emeka didn't come around. Instead, he began scheming. He started spreading rumors in the village that Chidi had forgotten where he came from, that all his wealth had made him arrogant. Some villagers believed Emeka's words, while others dismissed them, knowing the truth of Chidi's generosity. The final blow came when Emeka tried to seduce Chioma. He believed that if he could win her over, he could finally have what Chidi had. He would have his brother's wealth and power, and Chioma would be the crown jewel of his victory. Chioma, however, was fiercely loyal to her husband. She immediately told Chidi about Emeka's inappropriate advances. Chidi was heartbroken. His own brother, whom he had done everything for, had not only betrayed him but also disrespected his wife. Chidi couldn't stay silent any longer. He confronted Emeka, his voice filled with pain. Why, Emeka? Why have you done this? After everything I've done for this family, for you. Emeka's jealousy spilled out like venom. You think you're better than me, don't you? Just because you went to the city and made some money. You don't deserve all of this. I do? Chidi, shocked by the depth of Emeka's bitterness, stood there in disbelief. I worked hard for everything I have. I've never stopped taking care of this family. But your jealousy, it's destroyed everything. Their argument shook the household. Mama Nneka, hearing the shouting, came out to intervene, but it was too late. The bond between the brothers was shattered. Chidi, devastated by Emeka's betrayal, decided to distance himself from his brother. He could no longer trust him. Chidi continued to take care of his family, sending money to ensure his mother and sister were comfortable. But the relationship with Emeka was never the same. Emeka, consumed by his jealousy and regret, soon realized the cost of his actions. He had lost not only his brother's trust but also the respect of the family and the village. Chidi's success only grew, but the pain of his brother's betrayal never fully left him. As for Emeka, he was left to live with the consequences of his envy, watching from a distance as Chidi's life flourished. In the end, the two brothers who once shared everything were now worlds apart, separated not by distance but by the choices they had made. Chidi's success continued to grow, but so did the jealousy festering in Emeka's heart. After their bitter confrontation, Emeka's resentment spiraled out of control. His once quiet envy turned into something far more dangerous, hatred. He couldn't stand the thought of Chidi thriving in Lagos while he remained in the shadows. No matter how much Chidi had done for their family, Emeka felt he deserved more. One evening, Emeka sat in his room, his mind consumed by rage. Why does he have everything? His wealth, his business, and even his wife. It should all be mine. In that moment, Emeka made a decision that would change everything. He would get rid of his brother once and for all. Emeka, blinded by greed and jealousy, sought out a group of local thugs. He offered them a large sum of money to travel to Lagos and kill his brother. The plan was simple: no robbery, no mess. The thugs were instructed to make it look like a random attack, but they weren't to take anything. It was only Chidi's life Emeka wanted. Days later, under the cover of darkness, the hired thugs arrived at Chidi's home in Lagos. It was a quiet night, and Chidi and his wife, Chioma, were relaxing after dinner. Without warning, the thugs forced their way into the house. They dragged Chidi into the living room and shot him twice in the chest, leaving him bleeding on the floor. Chioma screamed in horror, but the thugs did not harm her. Instead, one of them sneered, "Your brother Emeka sends his regards. He says you're stingy and wicked, and now you'll pay for it." With those words, they left, believing Chidi was as good as dead. Chioma, panicking but determined to save her husband, immediately called for help. Neighbors rushed in, and Chidi was quickly taken to the hospital. The situation was critical, but Chidi was still alive, hanging on by a thread. As doctors worked to stabilize him, Chioma sat in the waiting room, shaken by the words of the thugs. She knew now that Emeka was behind the attack. But if Emeka thought Chidi was dead, there was a chance he might try again if he learned the truth. Chioma made a difficult decision. She would not inform the family, not yet. They needed to keep Chidi's survival a secret while they figured out their next steps. Chidi spent over a week in the hospital, recovering from his injuries. During that time, he and Chioma carefully crafted a plan. They decided to spread the news of Chidi's death to their family and see how Emeka would react. If Emeka believed Chidi was truly dead, he might expose himself. Meanwhile, Chidi quietly contacted the police. He told them everything about the attack and his suspicions regarding his brother. The police agreed to investigate but needed evidence to arrest Emeka. The plan was to track down the thugs fast. With the help of CCTV footage from the street outside their home, the police were able to identify and locate the gang members who had attacked Chidi. But while this investigation was underway, Chidi and Chioma spread the tragic news of his death. Back in the village, when news of Chidi's supposed death reached his mother, Mama Nneka, and his sister Ada, they were devastated. Mama Nneka wept for days, unable to believe that her eldest son, who had done so much for their family, was gone. Ada, who had always looked up to Chidi, was heartbroken. The village mourned with them, praising Chidi for his generosity and the legacy he had left behind. But Emeka's reaction was entirely different. While he pretended to mourn publicly, inside he was already plotting. With Chidi out of the picture, everything would come to him: his brother's wealth, his businesses, and even his wife, Chioma. In his mind, Emeka saw himself stepping into Chidi's shoes, finally claiming the life he believed he deserved. He even began telling people in the village how he would take care of Chioma now that Chidi was gone, planning to make her his wife and control everything that belonged to his brother. While Emeka was planning his future, the police continued their investigation. The thugs, tracked down through the CCTV footage, were arrested one by one. Faced with evidence and pressure, they soon cracked. They admitted that Emeka had hired them to kill his brother, revealing every detail of the plot. With this confession, the police moved quickly to arrest Emeka. They arrived at the family home in the village, where Emeka, still drunk on his imagined victory, was shocked to find himself in handcuffs. "What is this? Why are you arresting me?" he shouted, but the truth had already come out. As the police took him away, Emeka realized too late that his brother wasn't dead after all. Chidi had outsmarted him. Chidi, still recovering from his injuries, was devastated by the depth of his brother's betrayal but relieved that justice was finally being served. Emeka was charged with attempted murder, and the thugs who carried out the attack were also brought to trial. When Mama Nneka and Ada learned the truth, that Emeka had been behind the attack on Chidi, they were horrified. Their grief for Chidi turned into anger and disbelief. How could Emeka, their own brother, have done something so monstrous? Mama Nneka could barely stand to look at him as he was led away in handcuffs. Chidi, though hurt, refused to let his brother's betrayal break him. He knew that Emeka's downfall was the result of his own greed and jealousy. As he recovered, Chidi vowed to continue building the life he had worked so hard for, with Chioma by his side. The moral of the story: greed and jealousy can lead even family to commit the darkest of acts. Jealousy, when left unchecked, can destroy even the closest bonds. Sometimes, in chasing what isn't ours, we lose the very things that matter the most. But in the end, truth and justice will always prevail. Emeka's desire to take what wasn't his destroyed everything, while Chidi's resilience and wisdom saved him and protected the legacy he had built. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please give us a like, comment and subscribe. Stay tuned for more interesting stories. Your support is everything to our growing channel. See you in the next story.